Normally it's cute when Rarity and Applejack argue, but not this time. The Ponyville Days arc covers issues 30 and 31 of the main series, and as the title suggests, the story takes place during another Ponyville Days festival. This year, Ponyville plans to honor the town's first structure. However, a disagreement arises between Applejack and Filthy Rich regarding what was the town's first structure, and all the citizens take sides on whether the first official town establishment was the Apple family's first homestead or the Rich family's first shop. For this review, I'm going to change things up a bit and talk about what's not so good before I talk about what's good. Mainly because most, if not all of the bad things about this arc have to do with part 1. Oh my god, part 1. The arc in its entirety pretty much goes like this. Setup and conflict in part 1, then false resolution and true resolution in part 2. The setup was good, but the conflict had all kinds of problems, and it wasn't the conflict in and of itself that was flawed. As a matter of fact, I thought that having the town have this clash of ideals was a good idea to explore, and it was interesting to see which characters took which side. For example, the Cake sided with Filthy Rich because they ran their own business and saw the value in his argument, while Aloe and Lotus, who were in touch with nature, sided with the apples. What makes this part of the story flawed was not the idea, but how the idea was handled. When AJ and Filthy Rich confront each other over whose family made the first town structure, the rest of the main 6, aside from Twilight since she was absent for most of part 1, back AJ up. But then, all it takes to sway Rarity is a bribe from Filthy Rich, and then Rainbow Dash joins his side for practically no reason whatsoever. And there are 2 problems with this. Problem number 1. I don't really see why Rarity needed to be bribed in the first place. Again, it was shown in the comic that some of the ponies siding with Filthy Rich were ponies that ran their own businesses. So, as a pony who runs her own business, she would already be inclined to join his side, and even if she did need any persuading, all Filthy needed to do was appeal to the business mare in her, not straight up bribe her. And I know Rarity isn't the element of loyalty, but she still wouldn't take a bribe that easily just to have her shop gain more recognition. Speaking of loyalty, problem number 2. While Rainbow Dash has made some questionable decisions in the past, I find it really hard to believe that she would just switch sides so easily after originally siding with AJ, especially for such a petty reason. And even if she was being petty, she still would have sided with AJ anyway because of how much she loves the Apple family cider. I'm not saying that the remaining 5 shouldn't have taken different sides, but the reasons why they took different sides made little sense and it made them seem out of character. Then we get to the huge fight that the 2 factions have toward the end of part 1. Where do I even begin? The way everyone in Ponyville acted in this fight was just ridiculous. The majority of them acted like little children. I mean, throwing pies and dresses? Really? You can show a town being torn apart without stooping to this low of a level, and this brings up another issue of out-of-character behavior. Applejack. While it is true that she has a lot of pride in her family, and while I can see her stubbornly arguing in their favor, I really don't think she'd resort to an all-out war and trash Ponyville in the process. There really was no need for the rift between the 2 sides to get this crazy. The whole fight really just felt like filler to just get us to the end of part 1, and it undermined what could have been a really great conflict. An alternative would be to have each side refuse to work with each other. For example, Aloe and Lotus would deny service to any pony siding with Filthy Rich. Sure, it's still a little childish, but it's a lot less out there than a pie dress war. There could have been a portrayal that showed that neither side was right or wrong, but what we got was a portrayal that just made them all look silly. By the end of part 1, I found myself rolling my eyes at the whole thing, and I wasn't really looking forward to part 2. But thankfully, when it was finally released, it was a lot better than the first part, which brings us to the good. At first, I thought that once Twilight got back, we'd just have a repeat of Winter Wrap-Up, with nothing of value to take away from the experience. The story doesn't go that route. It seemed like it was going to at first, with Twilight organizing the citizens and setting up different jobs for them to do. But that plan fell flat on its face, and I think this worked in the story's favor. It took more than just organizing everyone into different stations. It took the whole town actually working together as a unit to get things done, which was a much more effective solution. Twilight, Fluttershy, and Spike were definitely the high points of this story, and I was impressed with how it avoided rehashing Winter Wrap-Up and instead brought forth a different solution that set it apart. In the end, Part 2 helped save this story from being one of the absolute worst arcs in the series. However, It doesn't completely eliminate the issues that part 1 had, which can really leave a bad taste in the mouth of the reader, especially if they read both parts in immediate succession. The issues with how the arc's main conflict arises really drag the story down, and the merits of part 2 could only do so much to save it, so I definitely say that this is one of the weaker main series arcs. 2015 really hasn't been a good year for the main series so far. Ever since we ended 2014 with The Good, the Bad, and the Ponies, the main series has been delivering stories that didn't really measure up to the standards set by the earlier arcs. But we can at least hope that the second half of 2015 will see a return to form, and if not, then we at least have Friends Forever. The next arc marks the second time that an older Fluttershy meme has been reused, and considering which one they're using, I'm not particularly opposed to it. So, what did you think of the Ponyville Days arc? Let me know in the comments below or hit me up on Tumblr, and consider supporting me on PayPal through art commissions or donations. Until next time, keep it sketchy, folks.